Shudram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jayamudire Ashtaprayashu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. We'll first offer our obeisances to the Shad Goswamis. Nana Shastra Vichanika Nipano Shaddharma Sanstapakau Lokanam Hitkarinau Tribhuvane Manyau Sharanyakarau Radha Krishna Padarvinda Bhajna Nandena Mattalikau Vande Rupa Sanatanau Raghuyugau Shri Jiva Gopalakau. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the six Goswamis, namely Shri Rupa Goswami, Shri Sanatan Goswami, Shri Raghunath Bhatta Goswami, Shri Raghunath Das Goswami, Shri Jiva Goswami, and Shri Gopal Bhatta Goswami, who are very expert in scrutinizing and studying all the revealed scriptures with the aim of establishing eternal religious principles for the benefit of all human beings. Thus, they are honored all over the three worlds and they are worth taking shelter of because they are absorbed in the mood of the gopis and are engaged in the transcendental loving service of Sri Radha and Krishna. So let us summarize with what we have heard till now. So two important shlokas. Anyabhilashita shunyam jnana karmadya navritam anukullena Krishna anushilanam bhaktiruttama. And the second shloka. Sarvapadi vinirmuktam tatparatvena nirmalam rishikena rishikesha sevanam bhaktiruchyate. So what we understand about devotional service from these two shlokas is that it has to be devoid of all other desires. It has to be favorable to Krishna. It has to be cultivated by following the footsteps of the gurus and the parampara. It should not be covered by any kind of karma and jnana. It has to be free from all material designations. We have to take Krishna as the highest object. It is actual sevanam, service, and it has to be faultless. And the third important aspect, Sadhu Sangha Nama Kirtan Bhagavata Shravana Mathurava Shri Murtera Shraddhaya Sevana. So serving the deity with great devotion, recitation of Srimad Bhagavatam among devotees, associating with advanced devotees, chanting the holy name of the Lord, and living in Mathura. These are the five most potent items. So the three categories of devotional service, sadhana bhakti, bhava bhakti, and prema bhakti. We being neophyte, we try to do the sadhana bhakti, wherein we don't have the self-realized devotion for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But then when we are doing the practice, slowly we'll begin to have the realization of the affection. And in prema bhakti, it will be deepening to the greatest extent and will achieve the ultimate objective of our life, which is Krishna Prem. The eligibility to become a devotee is the mercy of a devotee, not being overly attached to anything and at the same time not being overly detached as well. How to do the bhakti? 64 items, 20 items of importance, then pravritti marga, then nivritti karma. The 44 additional items, of which 39 items are of sadhana and 5 most potent items, which we saw earlier. The 10 pravritti karma are taking shelter of the lotus feet of Sri Guru, receiving initiation and spiritual instructions, serving Guru with love, following the path of the sadhus, having questions about the procedures of bhajan, renunciating all material enjoyment for the sake of Krishna, to live in a sacred place and to hear the greatness of such places, accepting only what is required for the sustenance of bhakti, observing vow on Ekadashi, and offering respect to the Ashwatha, Tulsi, Amlaki tree, the cows, the Brahmanas, and the Vaishnavas. Just to remind you all, tomorrow is Ekadashi, so kindly do the fasting. Then 10 activities to be avoided: giving up the association of non-devotees, to give up the desire to make more disciples, giving up too many undertakings, renouncing the study of many scriptures in order to make novel explanations and arguments, giving up miserly behavior, giving up lamentation, anger, etc., giving up blasphemy and disrespect of other devatas, giving up harassment of other living entities, giving up all offenses in regard to seva and nama, and we should not tolerate blasphemy of Sri Guru, Krishna, or the devotees. Then we have understood that the process of jnana and vairagya can impede devotional service. So that is not at all required. Sri Rupa Goswami has affirmed that purification of consciousness, bodily activities, austerities, peace of mind, all become automatically manifest in person who is engaged in devotional service. So we don't have to run after saintly qualities. Saintly qualities will automatically come in us over a period of time. Then we have seen that the 64 ways are the expansion of the basically Navvidha Bhakti. So Sri Rupa Goswami has confirmed his that there are 9 different kinds of devotional service, which are hearing, chanting, remembering, serving, worshipping the deity in the temple, praying, carrying out orders, serving Krishna as a friend, and sacrificing everything for him. So these are the Navvidha Bhakti, but it does not mean that we have to do all. We can achieve the Krishna Prem by executing even one of them. And this is something which has been confirmed in the scriptures as well. Because each and every of these process is so powerful that if you follow even a single one, you'll achieve the desired perfection. So it is likely that someone may not be interested in doing all, but he may only be attached to hearing. And someone may just like to keep on chanting, but both will achieve the same goal. Chaitanya Charitamrita, this has been explained, wherein we get this sentence: one may execute 1, 2, 3, or all the different processes, and at the ultimate end, he will achieve the desired goal of being established in devotional service. Then we started off with what is spontaneous service, spontaneous devotional sadhana. So there are 2 aspects. One is a devotee practicing spontaneous service, and the other is devotee perfect in spontaneous service. So one who is practicing is basically performing the sadhana with aspiration to attain the mode of a specific perfect devotee. And wherein we are perfect spontaneous devotees, that it means we are it's only those who are eternal residents of Vṛndāvana who have this spontaneous love in a specific relationship, that is Ragatmika Bhakti. So it is the perfect devotional attachment which is found in the residents of Vṛndāvana, that is a Vrajvasis. While Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti is the practice who aspire to develop their mode. So we are all aspirants. So that is what we are going to be discussing further today. Then we saw that Ragatmika Bhakti has 2 types. Depending upon the mood, there are 4 kinds of mood: servitude, friendship, parenthood, and consorthood. So they are categorized into 2 categories: Sambandharupa and the Kamarupa. So Sambandharupa includes friendship, servitude, and parenthood, and Kamarupa includes conjugal love. But what is important, which we understood towards the end last week, was that emotion is more effective than intellect in fixing the mind on an object. So when emotion is impelling the remembrance of Krishna, that is the most effective method to revive the ecstatic love of Godhead, which is lying dormant in our hand. At times there could be unfavorable emotions and they can entrap our mind, but then even they end up purifying ourselves. So just like Shishupal and Kaunsa, they were obsessed with Krishna out of fear and envy. But in the end, they became purified and liberated. And it is said that they achieved the same destination as gopis. But the only difference was they reached only till the level of the Brahma Jyoti and not to the Golak Vṛndāvana. Om Ajnantimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Ena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamnam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitam Sham Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nityanamine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So today we are starting the chapter 16, which is further discussion on the spontaneous devotional service. What is to be remembered till now is that having understood all these aspects, we have started this journey and we know what is our ultimate objective. So we have understood the different types of bhakti. We have understood how over a period of time, the emotions are going to be developing in us. And now we have reached a stage where we are going to be raganugas. And not only raganugas, but we are going to understand it in more detail. So what is understandable here, where we ended yesterday or ended last week, was Sambandharupa, or the relationship. So relationship is understood. Now we need to understand who is a Sambandharupa. So Sri Rupa Goswami Ji in this particular chapter is explaining it further to us. How Sambandhanugas are those who are actually trying to develop the relationship in the mode of a sambandha or a relationship. So Srila Swamiji mentions that just like Kamarupa or a sensual attraction is intense attachment to service in the mode of a lover, similarly, Sambandharupa is intense attachment in the mode of a parent, friend, or a servant. And that is where it differentiates itself. Now, this is something which was seen by us in the denizens of the Vṛndāvana, like Nanda Mahārāja, Yaśodā Maiya, or even the way the others have been coordinating with Kṛṣṇa. And they deal in such a transcendental manner as a father and a mother to Kṛṣṇa. So, ideally speaking, no one can become a father or a mother of Kṛṣṇa. But we possess such transcendental feelings that we want to have Kṛṣṇa and serve Kṛṣṇa, care for Kṛṣṇa as a parent. So this obsession, this desire that we have is something which comes in the Sambandharupa. Even the Vṛṣṇis, or the relatives of Kṛṣṇa in Dvārakā, they also felt like that. So this spontaneous love for Kṛṣṇa in parental relationship is found both in Dvārakā amongst the Vṛṣṇis and also those who are in the Vṛndāvana, that is the Vrajavasis. So, and this is something which is eternally existing in them. We cannot copy them. But yes, when we start servicing, when we start doing the bhakti, it may happen a few amongst us may develop that. I have seen certain devotees who start doing the seva and then they develop intense attachment towards Laddu Gopal. And then Laddu Gopal becomes the presiding deity in their altar at their home. And they care for him just like a small mother would care for a newborn infant or a child. Because that is the kind of loving devotion which has come to it. Or it could be just like when they are servicing, say Jagannath, Baldev, Subhadra, and they become more attached to them. Oh, I'm more like a friend towards them. I want to care for them. So it could be a dasya bhav. So this all comes up automatically. We cannot say, okay, I want to have this particular power and do the service. No. It's exactly reverse. So what is discussed in this chapter is that you start practicing. And then as you practice, that particular mood, that particular power will develop. And it could be of different varieties. So as mentioned in last week, Manuka Sadhana Bhakti is an advanced practice. And the intention is to cultivate that service of someone who is eternally perfect. Perfect. I'm reiterating twice. Resident of Vṛndāvana. So it's not that they are coming there once or twice. No, they are eternal residents. And they are perfect. And it is their perfection which they have achieved over the years, because of which they are able to develop that particular love for Kṛṣṇa. We just do our bhakti, we just do our services, and it may one day we may also get that kind of spontaneous devotion. Okay, you are saying that you make it, but then what is the eligibility? The eligibility is very simple. The eligibility is that we should have that desire. That is the most important eligibility. The eligibility is to get that natural desire, strong desire to serve Kṛṣṇa in a specific relationship. And this can be done by hearing how the Vṛṣṇis have been servicing Kṛṣṇa in various loving modes. So, Shravanam becomes the source. And that is why we have these classes. That is why we have Bhagavatam discussion every day in the morning, in the evening. You go to temple, there are so many programs. So Shravanam will make you understand about the different devotees, and automatically that love will develop. Uji, if it develops, how do I know? When will it manifest? Well, that is answered by Srila Goswamiji in this chapter. So this lobha, this desire is called as lobha. This is the most overwhelming desire in our heart to please Kṛṣṇa in a particular way. So if there is any other desire in heart, we will not possess lobha. So indirectly what it means is that we will not get lobha until we have removed all the unwanted material desires from the heart. So it means we should have reached the stage of anartha nivritti. However, this eagerness to follow the Vṛṣavasis will not be possible unless we are freed from material contamination. So we have to work on how all the material contamination will reach. So if you're still thinking about, oh, I have to serve my husband, he is the only one who can protect me, what will people think about me? Then those material contaminations are still there, then that lobha will not come. Oh, I have so many responsibilities for my child, for my spouse, for my old parents. Then again this material contamination, and that lobha will not develop. And if the lobha is not developing, they will still not reach the stage of anartha. So you have to be detached, but not overly detached. Yes, this is karma, this is kartavya, and I have to complete it. The results, they depend on Kṛṣṇa. Karmanyevadhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana. So the moment we start thinking about it, then we become eligible and it starts manifesting. So does it mean that those who are doing this practice are above the regulations? Because finally, we see that the Raganuga Bhaktas, they are not following the regulative principles very strictly. But because of their spontaneity, they have become attracted and they are trying to follow the footsteps of the devotees. But it does not mean that they're neglecting the regulative principles. What it means is that the inspiration to serve is so strong, the inspiration to surrender is so strong, that the regulative principles, scriptural knowledge, it is not at all required. That love for Kṛṣṇa has come automatically, and it is very spontaneous. So that is what we have to aspire. So the three practices are remembrance, remembering through internal and external service, and performing activities of sadhana. So let us understand each one of them in detail. So regarding remembrance, this particular shloka from Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Leela, 22nd chapter, is also quoted in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu in the second part. It says, the devotee should always think of Kṛṣṇa within himself, and one should choose a very dear devotee who is a servitor of Vṛndāvana. One should constantly engage in topics about that servitor and his loving relationship with Kṛṣṇa. And one should live in Vṛndāvana. If one is physically unable to go to Vṛndāvana, he should mentally live there. Remembrance. Even in material world, we find this remembrance. Between the paramour, the lovers, they are always thinking about each other. How can we see them? How can we just go near them? How can we talk to them? Can I just have a finger touch? Even when they are working, they are cooking, they are sleeping. So if it is so much strong about material, what to speak of spiritual? So the moment we start thinking, remembering, everywhere about remembrance, then that bhakti is developed. So the three means first is very important, remembrance. And even amongst the remembrance about a devotee who is in Vṛndāvana. So we can remember Kṛṣṇa with his devotees, or we can remember only about Vṛndāvana. Both are equally. But what is most important is, yes, you have to think about it. Which it is not possible to go to Vṛndāvana. So how do I do? Not necessary. As mentioned here, remembering Kṛṣṇa with devotees is important. So how do the sadhanas do this practice? The devotees, they remember Kṛṣṇa with devotees. Oh, Kṛṣṇa is playing ball with his friends. Oh, here is Kṛṣṇa, he is doing the Kalimat. Oh, here is Kṛṣṇa who is eating the makhan. Or oh, here is the Kṛṣṇa who has picked up the Govardhan here. So the moment we think and we desire which relationship we have to aspire to, that is important. But constantly remembering, we have to take shelter of Vṛndāvana. Without taking shelter of Vṛndāvana, this is not possible. Because it is the eternal abode. So again, it could be physical or mental, not possible for each one of us to go and decide that physically you have got certain responsibilities, certain duties, certain inhibitions. But then mental residence is more important. It's not that physical residence is not important, but mental is most important. Just look at Srila Prabhupada. At the raw age, when people generally take sannyas and they go and retire in Vṛndāvana, just to follow his guru's order, he crossed all the oceans and went to America. And see the magic which has happened. He was constantly, however, present mentally in Vṛndāvana. He was carrying the Radha Madhava, constant engagement in Vṛndāvana. That is important. Other could be remembering through internal and external service. That is also a methodology. So Sri Goswami ji again quotes Chaitanya Charitamrita here, the 158 number shloka. So the shloka says, the advanced devotee who is inclined to spontaneous loving service should follow the activities of a particular associate of Kṛṣṇa's in Vṛndāvana. He should execute service externally as a regulative devotee as well as internally from his self-realized position. Thus, he should perform devotional service both externally and internally. Two important aspects. That inclination for spontaneous loving service has developed. So the moment it has developed, we have to now follow the activities of the Vrajvasis. So we know what activities, how they wake up, how they sleep, what activities they do. So we simply try to follow them. That is externally. And internally, we try to imagine ourselves in that position and try to serve Kṛṣṇa, thinking that we have already reached goal. So the Vṛndāvana Vasis, the Vrajvasis, they manifest two ways. One, wherein they are here externally in this particular material world, and one is the perpetual position. So similarly, we have two ways to meditate upon their service. Externally, by having the sadhaka form, how they chant, ate, slept, preached, etc. And internally, by following the siddha form. So both these things can be done by us successfully. But then there's a confusion which happens when we say internally siddha form has to be thought about and followed. So someone has come out with a concept called as siddha pranay. So Prabhupada ji in this particular chapter clearly mentions it's a misrepresentation of this. Because people misunderstand that, okay, we should immediately begin performing internal spiritual activities. Even before we are purified of anarthas. No, that is wrong. The first stage has to be getting ourselves away from anarthas. And then going beyond this concept of material body. And then considering about the activities which are mentioned here. So how do we do the activities? That is the exact third way. Perform the activities of the sadhana. And that we have already been seeing. Because the practitioner is not rejecting any of the 64 practices. We continue to practice them. But we focus on something which is more conducive to our specific goal. Like we like deity dressing and worship. So though we are chanting, doing lectures, taking lectures, listening, shravanam, kirtanam, going to temples, all the 64 activities, it's deity worship or dressing which gives us more satisfaction. So we follow 64, but we focus on something which is more conducive. We do not abandon regular hearing and chanting, but focus more on hearing and chanting about a particular mode. That is what is important. So learned acharyas have recommended that you have to follow the regulative principles, even if we have developed this spontaneous love for Krishna, because it is very important. The Novida Bhakti is very, very important to be performed. And then we concentrate more on one which is most important. And that is how we go ahead. Then Srila Kṛṣṇa is discussing about the Kamanugas and the Sambandharupas. So we have already seen that one who aspires to attain the perfect spontaneous devotion in conjugal love, Kamarupa, is going to be called as Kamanuga. So it's like devotional service following in the footsteps of gopis or the ranis of Dvārakā. So if you want to follow that footsteps, you have to serve like them, then it comes under the Kamanuga Bhakti. So it could be again two types. Sambhoga Ichamai, it is direct service to Krishna. Or it could be Taddad Bhava Ichatmika, that is, we try to desire to serve the devotees or serving Krishna in conjugal affection. This is something which Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ji has also recommended. Wherein he said, we aspire to serve the footsteps of the gopis. And what is our desire? To be a servant of the servant of the servant of the. In Kali Yuga, this becomes the most potent mechanism of developing the Krishna Bhakti. So what is the eligibility? As you have seen already, overall for the Kama Bhakti, here also, the eligibility is that we need to have an intense desire, and intense is something which I already discussed last week. So to nourish that intense pure desire, what happens is the devotees start worshipping Radha Krishna deities. And they hear about Lord's conjugal pastimes. And that is how it develops. Prabhuji, I am a male. How can I develop? No. Even males are eligible. And the sages of Dandakaranya are evidence that this can develop even in males. There are two types, Parakiya, that is as seen in the gopis, or Swakiya, prema, as seen in the queens of Dvārakā. So what is important in this particular important statements is that this is possible who are already engaged in following the regulatory principles of devotional service. Very important. First, and even amongst that, one who is actually in the service of Radha and Krishna in life. So what happens is, when we are doing this service, there's a spontaneous love which develops for the deities. And at the same time, we are hearing about the Lord's pastimes, the exchanging of loving affairs with the gopis. And we become attracted to these pastimes. And that is how this love develops. So getting into the service is important. And again, as I summarized earlier, it is not manifested in women alone. The material body has nothing to do with spiritual loving affairs. A woman may develop to become a friend of Krishna. Similarly, a man may develop the feature of becoming a gopi in Vṛndāvana. And this is explained in Padma Purana about the Nanda Mahārāja, that when they saw Lord Ramchandra, when he was banished there for 14 years, at that time they were captivated by the beauty of Lord Ram. And they simply wanted to embrace Lord. Now, Lord Ramchandra, he understood it. And even the sages were knowing that Krishna Rama Nanya. He is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So by remaining silent, Lord Rama accepted their prayers. And these same Dandaka rishis, sages, they appeared in Gokul, Vṛndāvana, where Krishna had come. And there, as gopis or girlfriends of Krishna, they attained the perfection of spiritual life. So this material body of a man or a woman or someone else is immaterial when it comes to our real identity as servants, eternal servants of Krishna. That is most important. And then Srila Rupa Goswami ji is discussing about the Sambandharupa, or parenthood, or worship in friendship. So same definition, that one who aspires to attend the service in the mood of a parent, friend, or a servant, that is Sambandharupa, which we understood last week, is a Sambandharupa. So here there can be two types of aspirations. Aspiration for direct parenthood or friendship with Krishna. Or second, aspiration for servicing or appreciation of Krishna's parents and friends. Now here we have to remember, how do we become eligible, or how it develops again, is once we have followed the 64 practices. And there we find it's the Dasya Bhava as exhibited by Lord Hanuman that becomes more suitable for us. We like to keep on doing some service, cleaning the vessels, cleaning the temple, marjanam, or preparing newer clothes, new designs, new turbans. So servitude or caring for the deities, just like we care for our friends. Friendship. So only when we are doing the service, this mode will develop. So again, the stress is we have to start doing service. Seva, bold, underlined, italics, bigger fonts. Seva is important. Sevanam uchyate. So we have to start doing some seva. That is the most important essence of all the discussions that we are having till now. The moment we develop it, then it will happen. But again, expectation of direct parental relationship with Kṛṣṇa is discouraged by the gurus. Everyone. The reason being simple. Because if we try to desire to directly become father of Kṛṣṇa, it may happen that inadvertently we get a desire to become Nanda Mahārāja. This is Mayavadi. This is offensive. Sri Prabhupada says no, strict no. It is rare that you will get such relationships, such expectations, but even if they come, you have to be very careful. And the Maharaj is a very advanced devotee. You cannot replace him. So we should not do that offensive activity. So regarding same thing, there's something called as Pushti Marga. Pushti is satisfaction. So in Narayan Vyostava prayers, it is mentioned, persons who are always engaged in thinking of the Lord, either as their husband, friend, father, or well-wisher, are always worshipable by everyone. See. So if someone is always engaged in thinking about Kṛṣṇa in whatever way, whatever sambandha, he is worshipable by everyone. But this spontaneous love can be developed only by the special mercy of Kṛṣṇa or his devotee. That is also we have to remember. So these persons who have developed that love are very special, because either they have got the mercy of Kṛṣṇa or of the pure devotees. And so they are worshipable. And this is called as Pushti Marga. Pushti means nourishing and Marga means path. Such nourishment of devotional service is the highest standard. And so it is called as Pushti Marga. Because we are nourishing our bhakti. You find it in Dvārakā, especially, or even the Vallabha Sampradaya. So, Vallabha Sampradaya, they also worship Kṛṣṇa in the Pushti Marga. And the Dvārakā Vasis, they worship Balakrishna under this heading of Pushti Marga. In Gujarat, we find this. So, we have to keep on worshiping. That is important, most important. And it is why Srila Prabhupada ji has always told us, before entering temple, what we do is, we offer our obeisances to the Vaishnavas, then to Prabhupada, and then to the devotees. Because finally, Vaishnavas may have had this development in some form which we don't know. We may not be knowing. I was listening to a lecture of Srila Prabhupada ji, and then Srila Prabhupada was saying to his disciples that this mission has been successful because all of you have been sent to me by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Lord Chaitanya's mercy is there. So you all came and this mission became successful. So the disciples became little suspicious. How is it that Prabhupada ji is saying something like this? So they asked, we have been so sinful. We have done all kinds of sin. Our activities have been so banishing. How do you say that we have been sent by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, or we have been the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that your mission becomes successful? So Prabhupada ji responded to them. The moment you came in touch with Kṛṣṇa, you became purified. And you became purified because that Kṛṣṇa consciousness was already there. It was only that touch, that hearing of Kṛṣṇa, which was required, which removed all the material contamination. So you already had that mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he specifically sent all of them to me here. And so this became Your purification became an example for the whole world to follow. And that is how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has blessed me by having you as my disciple. So you have to remember that service, that attitude of service is very important. That mercy of a pure devotee is very important. So we have to avoid all kinds of Vaishnava aparadh. We have to do all kinds of seva, because seva will purify us. That seva could be towards the deities or towards the devotees of the deities. That is the most important aspect which we have learned till now. Hare Krishna. Panchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyeva cha